Meanwhile, my friend Andrew Breitbart used to say that culture is upstream of politics, and it is true. When you hear from all of your cultural sources, all of them, that America is systemically racist and evil, you start to believe it. And when you see that people are called out and cudgeled into line if they don't repeat that narrative, you start to say to yourself, well, maybe I should do that too, right? Maybe I need to say all of this woke stuff, because if I don't say that woke stuff, I'll get fired from my job at Coca-Cola. Or maybe I will be tossed out by my local university. Or maybe all of my friends will unfriend me on Facebook. Okay, this has infused even some of our most apolitical, dumb cultural institutions. So I say dumb because I will freely admit to you, I am not a watcher of The Bachelor. I think the premise of the show is idiotic, frankly. The notion that you have one person who's dating 20 people at once, I think is kind of perverse. The fact that people think this is romantic is absolutely beyond me. It must be part of the lizard brain that sees any sort of romantic gesture as romantic, even if it's done in the context of a highly and slickly produced program in which a dude is dating 20 chicks at once. Okay, but in any case, being a non-fan of The Bachelor, I think this gives me in some ways more credibility to talk about the stupidity of what is now going on at The Bachelor. Okay, The Bachelor has been an apolitical show that men have not wanted to watch for 25 years. Right? It's the kind of show where your wife turns it on and watches it and is enthralled, and you sit there and you just wish that you could turn the channel to football. But it is one of the key institutional cultural touchstones of our society, clearly, right? I mean, it's been around for forever, right? It's a cultural institution in America. It's been one of the highest rated shows on TV since 2002. It has been around more than half my life on TV. Okay, so now The Bachelor is imploding, and it's imploding because there was a contestant named Rachel Kirkconnell, and Rachel Kirkconnell several years ago went to a antebellum themed plantation party when she was in college. This involved basically dressing up like Scarlett O'Hara at a plantation. And this was considered wildly uncouth and racist. It was been covered by the internet sleuths. Ooh, those great people doing amazing things, like suggesting that people are racist because they dressed up as Scarlett O'Hara at an antebellum themed party in the South, as though this was some sort of referendum on slavery. That probably Rachel Kirkconnell was totally cool with slavery because of this. Probably that is the most obvious takeaway, right? I mean, that's the most obvious takeaway. Okay, so when that first came out, the contestant on The Bachelor this season is a black man. His name is Matt James. And Matt James originally came out on February 3rd and reacted by asking for some grace for her, Matt James. Here's what Matt James said. Here's a direct quote. I have not spoken to anybody since the show ended, but I would say that you have to be really careful about what you are doing on social media. Rumors are dark and they're nasty and they can ruin people's lives. So I would give people the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully she will have her time to speak on that. Now, spoiler alert, I mean, it's well all over the noise, but here's news. But here's your spoiler alert if you're one of the number of people who, for some odd reason, love the show. Matt did end up with Rachel in the show, right? He picked her. Right? He ended up with her. And that was Matt James, the black contestant on The Bachelor, saying we should show her some grace. The social media judge, jury, they really should not be doing what they're doing. People on social media decided to check into her parents' voting record. They decided that she had to be canceled because she went to this antebellum themed party, and boy, isn't it fun to go get this lady. Let's just go right after this lady because she disagrees politically with us, or her parents disagree politically with us, and also she went to an ill-advised themed party in 2018 when she was in college. Okay, so that's the setup. The setup is that she does something that is somewhat questionable in the modern context, but certainly not questionable as of even 5-10 years ago. And I mean, at that point, it would have been considered kind of crazy to cancel somebody over something like this. Now you cancel somebody over literally saying the N-word to denounce the N-word. So everything is cancelable. But it was so crazy that even Matt James, the black bachelor, was like, yeah, guys, you need to give her some space. Okay, that is the setup. That is the setup. Fast forward about 3 weeks, right? Because that was February 3rd. February 3rd, the Bachelor contestant, Matt James, comes out and defends her. And then a couple days later, Chris Harrison, who's the host of The Bachelor, he comes out and says basically the exact same thing as Matt James, right? Just a couple days later, he comes out, he does an interview, and he says, maybe we should show her some grace. Social media is not judge, jury, and executioner. You're ruining somebody's life. Maybe you ought to take into account the fact that she was young and stupid. When you're young and stupid, you're young and stupid. Maybe she can explain herself. Maybe she'll apologize. Okay, and then Chris Harrison got hit with the anvil of wokeism. It was just dropped on his head from the third story. And so he ended up being suspended from his own show for the great crime of suggesting that a young woman ought to be given grace, saying the exact same thing in nearly the exact same words that Matt James said them. Okay, the reason that this all started is because there's a former Bachelor contestant named Rachel Lindsay. Okay, so Rachel Lindsay went after Chris Harrison and said it was racist of him. He didn't understand, she said, when she was not cutting ads for Cadillac in the middle of the Black Lives Matter protest. She said that it was very, very important that Chris Harrison understood the context of his own racist sentiments. And the producers of The Bachelor, wanting to avoid controversy, then removed Chris Harrison from the final episodes of The Bachelor, which is kind of incredible, actually. Okay, fast forward about 3 weeks. Now, Matt James, who, by the way, picked Rachel Kirkconnell. Again, he picked her after defending her at the beginning of February. Now, he has issued a full-scale statement, not only denouncing Rachel Kirkconnell and throwing her under the bus. I mean, this guy's, what a douchebag. Honestly, seriously, he was defending her 3 weeks ago. What changed in 3 weeks other than he didn't like the media blowback? So he took a girl who was dating him, right? And then he just tossed her under the bus. And the show that made him a star and a relevant person in American life, the first Black Bachelor, a show so apparently racist that you had women of all different racial makeups dating the main character who is Black. So obviously this is a deeply racist, terrible show. Now Matt James has flipped on a dime, and now he says the show is racist, Chris Harrison is racist, and he is woke, which makes this guy not only a douchebag, but a coward. So Matt James put out a statement. It says, "The past few weeks have been some of the most challenging in my life. And while there are several episodes left of the season, it is important that I take the time to address the troubling information that has come to light since we wrapped filming, including the incredibly disappointing photos of Rachel Kirkconnell and the interview between Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison." Wow. So he went from, let's give her some grace and treat people like human beings, to, I'm incredibly disappointed in everyone around me, and it's definitely not my fault, and please leave me alone, and maybe I should be on the cover of a magazine talking about racial problems in America. Matt James writes, "The reality is that I'm learning about these situations in real time." Oh, really? Because back on February 3rd, you knew about them. So if by in real time you knew that the photos were out at the beginning of February and you defended her, and now you're too much of a coward to stand by it, there's that. He said, "It has been devastating and heartbreaking, to put it bluntly. Chris's failure to receive and understand the emotional labor that my friend Rachel Lindsay was taking on by graciously and patiently explaining the racist history of the antebellum South, a painful history that every American should understand intimately, was troubling and painful to watch." Okay, that's just pathetic. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. The labor and pain, the emotional labor Rachel Lindsay was taking on. Again, this is a lady who in the middle of the Black Lives Matter protest, she's like, you know how I fight for Black Lives Matter? I put on podcasts talking about Black history in my beautiful Cadillac XT6. I'm not kidding. That's an actual Instagram post she put up. Okay, it is a post in which she touts Black Lives Matter, and she says she can listen to podcasts about Black history on her beautiful Bose sound system in her Cadillac XT6. Emotional labor, my ass. Rachel Lindsay couldn't be reveling in this anymore if you paid her, and they are paying her. Emotional labor. Come on. Yeah, she seemed, I mean, it must be real emotional labor having to explain to people that they should be canceled, not because they're actively racist or believe in the inferiority of Black people, but that they should be canceled because they suggest grace for a person who went to a party that was ignorant, and that should be, that's cancelable. And not only that, the person who says, maybe we should give that person grace, give them a chance to explain themselves and apologize, to even explain to that person is emotional labor. You cannot even explain to Chris Harrison. That is an emotion. It's an act of emotional labor. Emotional labor. Honest to God, pay me for that kind of emotional labor. Give me a Cadillac sponsorship for that kind of emotional labor. Emotional labor. As Black people and allies immediately knew and understood, it was a clear reflection of a much larger issue that the Bachelor franchise has fallen short on addressing adequately for years. Again, Matt James is the first Black Bachelor. The first one. Okay, and Rachel Lindsay was a contestant on The Bachelor. She's very famous now. Yes, that is, you nailed it, right, Matt? You nailed it. It turns out that it has dawned on you now that you are a participant in the most racist franchise in American history, obviously, The Bachelor. It was like Birth of a Nation, except with dating and a Black lead who's the hero, and him dating a bunch of, Lindsay, by the way, was the first Black Bachelorette. Forgive me for my ignorance on matters concerning The Bachelor, one of the dumbest shows of all time. Matt James continues, "This moment has sparked critical conversations and reporting." No, it has not. It has sparked stupid conversations and bad reporting. Raised important questions. No, it has not. The only important question is, why is it that you are running away from your own willingness to grant people the benefit of the doubt? People you are dating, by the way. And then the minute that there's some blowback, you throw her under the bus and you suggest that you're a hero for doing so. and resulted in inspiring displays of solidarity from the Bachelor Nation. It has also pushed me to reevaluate and process what my experience on The Bachelor represents. Oh, so now he's going to reevaluate, right? We're going to go back and we're going to reprocess. We're really going to think hard about what a rough life he had, dating 20 women at once on national television and being paid for the privilege. It has pushed me to reevaluate and process what my experience on The Bachelor represents, not just for me, but of all the contestants of color. Oh, no, he's a representative of all Black Americans. Black Americans, you understand? This guy represents you, apparently, according to him. Especially the Black contestants of this season and seasons past, and for you, the viewers at home. I will continue to process this experience, and you will hear more from me in the end. My greatest prayer is that this is an inflection point that results in real and institutional change for the better. I'm sorry, this is the stupidest crap I have ever heard. It does not make the culture better, it makes the culture significantly worse. If you look at this season of The Bachelor as a victory for American racial tolerance, you're missing it. Because what it was a victory for conciliation, and then the woke came and decided to completely destroy everything. And the Bachelor, again, he started it, man. He started it. He defended Kurt Connell. He defended her at the beginning of February. And within 3 weeks, he has flipped. He's not only indicting Kurt Connell as a racist, he's indicting Chris Harrison as a racist, and the entire Bachelor franchise as a racist. He's doing all of that within 3 weeks because Rachel Lindsay said, you are obviously a sellout, essentially, right? I mean, that must have been the case that she was making publicly. Or at least he felt that way. Pretty incredible stuff there. Pretty incredible stuff because the show ain't racist. You know what the proof is that the show ain't racist? The show. There is no good evidence that Rachel Kirkconnell is a racist. Not only did she post a groveling apology for the antebellum stuff, she's put out a bunch of statements since that Rachel Lindsay has found insufficient. And Rachel Lindsay, as the Pope of wokeness, gets to determine whether or not you are sufficiently deferential to woke principles. And she'll do so while standing in front of a Cadillac XTS, by the way. It's a XT6. It's impressive stuff, I will admit. Because nothing says America is racist quite like getting to rip America as racist, the show that you starred in as racist, the host of that show as racist, other contestants on that show as racist, and the entire system of the United States as racist while standing in front of a beautiful Cadillac XT6 with a Bose sound system. Clearly, this is an awful, awful country for people like Rachel Lindsay. Clearly, she has suffered greatly in her life. Clearly, Matt James has suffered the emotional labor. Oh, the emotional labor. Oh, the emotional labor, my ass. Seriously, ridiculous stuff. Facts don't care about your feelings, and it's a fact that The Ben Shapiro Show is the largest conservative podcast in the nation. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our content.